Today's episode of the podcast is extra, extra, extra special because instead of one guest, you're going to meet three remarkable women in conversation together, bringing their own lived experience, their own perspective on fulfillment. So you're going to start out hearing from Dr. Helen Krug von Nidda. She is an executive coach. Her new book is coming out called Closing the Fulfillment Gap. It releases in September. Go pre-order now. It helps an author an awful lot. And when you hear more about this book, I promise you're going to want it. You're also going to meet Risa Crandall. She spent 38 years as a media and tech sales and marketing leader before founding a total passion project called Love Is, which is an in-person program that connects people in community over a shared home-cooked meal. Next, you'll meet Sue Moser. She is a totally high voltage keynote speaker and mindset activator. She is currently working in business, in a corporate role, killing it. And she is, through her uniquely high capacity and intensity, also founding a purpose-driven brand called the Visceral Edge, where she's helping high capacity leaders stop performing and playing and start leading from their most alive selves. So these women are in some ways doing a lot of the same things. Everybody had a lot of experience in corporate roles. Everyone has found more purpose and meaning in this current chapter. And yet they're in sort of different places. And I think for you as a listener, this is really important to understand because perhaps you're going to relate a little more to one or the other. But my hope is that you hear in all three of these stories commonalities and insights that you can use to find your greatest fulfillment. Because research shows that midlife is actually prime time for doing the most meaningful work of our lives. And research shows that all that rewiring that's happening in our brains that's making, everything else sort of like dry and craggy is making our quest for fulfillment and meaning ripe and ready. And so we're going to use the incredible framework from Helen's book. She calls it the MOVE framework to guide us through this exploration. And I hope that you won't just be a passive participant in this, but that really this won't be a conversation between me and three amazing women, but between the four of us and all of you. So grab a pen and paper, make some notes as you go, and consider these questions for yourself. And then let's do a book club when the book comes out and talk all about it and see where we are. All right. With that, let's dive in. Thank you all so much for being here. Helen, we're going to kick things off with you. Tell us a little bit about your journey and why you believe that this framework really is the path to living with our greatest fulfillment.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here. I wanted to start really by just saying that having come from a human resources background, which is I started in recruitment, which I love because I love interviewing individuals. I started in the private sector, then I worked for the United Nations and peacekeeping, and everyone is so excited to start a job. When you get to interview people and see them thrive and they get the job, great. And slowly but surely, I was seeing these same people start to wilt along the way. Right. So here I am as the H professional, the specialist, like trying to keep them motivated and fulfilled. And I could just see this decline over time that seemed to happen no matter what organization I was working for. And in particular, women, because we know all the systemic barriers that exist. And so it got me thinking about how can I better support women who are in these spaces. And sort of fast forward a couple of years after that, when I was studying, I went back to school at 50 to get my doctorate in education. I really focused on women in the workplace and how some of them managed to either recreate their careers to find more fulfillment or just find methodologies that help them find a more fulfilling life. And from that came the MOVE framework, which I'll explain. There were 4 elements that were consistent when I spoke to women and through my coaching that seemed to underpin those that were able to do that journey successfully. And it was, the first one was around motivation, the M, right? The motivation, which encompasses values and skills and how you relate to recognition. The next piece was opportunities, having access to opportunities, understanding how to do that, using your growth mindset to do that, and also auditing your workspace, your work environment. So that's the O, the opportunities. The third one was being clear, at least starting to investigate your vision, right? Like going from who you are today to what that could look like, right? So really that activation in terms of who am I becoming? And then the last one, which is the E, is the encouraging community. Nothing gets done, we can see on this podcast and how you create these beautiful communities without you having a community and an encouraging one. So I call the framework MOVE because in addition to that, we have gone from what I call, or what was called the opportunity gap, certainly my mother's generation, right, where there was just no options, to a fulfillment gap. And so that's what I'm hoping to do through this book, is really talk about how using MOVE as a foundation. And by the way, it's made up of obviously many different bits of research. I just try to put them in one framework to make it easier for me to also remember that piece. So that's what I wanted to say about the framework, and that's how it came to be. And that's what
I love that.
Work.
It's such an easy to remember framework, and so well aligned with everything I'm finding in my research as well, which is part of why I get so excited about it, because it's so well distilled and so grounded in research. So Risa and Sue, before we get into your whole journeys, I thought it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on fulfillment. Like, what does that even look like or mean to you at this point in your lives? Risa.
I love the theme of your book, Helen. It's fantastic. Can't wait to read it. Already pre-ordered. So fulfillment, when I think about it, is something that really feels authentic to you, that comes naturally. Whereas in my former, part of my career, a lot of the elements did come naturally. So that gave me a lot of joy in the 38 years that I was in the media and technology industry. But now what I'm finding is that when something really comes from your personal experience and you can bring along your professional experience, it is so much more added authentic, I guess I'd say, with so much integrity. And that ability to see the vision, when you talked about, so much clearer and concise than ever before. So that gives me fulfillment to know what I'm doing, where I'm going, but be open to other, kind of avenues and different kind of pockets of interest. But it's the marrying of the two that I think for people at our kind of our stage of avenue is to kind of bring together all the different experiences, not one or the other.
I love that. Yeah, that reintegration, we keep calling it. Sue, you were born with a rare cancer, and being treated for that cancer has, I imagine, shaped every aspect of your life. So tell us a little bit about how that's influenced your feelings about fulfillment.
Situation is actually an N of 1. I am the only documented case of the type and severity of cancer at birth. And truth be told, until I was 26, you wouldn't hear me talk about it. You wouldn't hear me engage with it, despite having to live with the realities of its impact on my life every single day. So very quickly, I wore diapers until my 30s, when I ultimately got a permanent ostomy. I did enemas every morning before school, which is super fun as a kid. And there were any number of other dynamics that were prevalent in my everyday life and then sprinkled, right, in doctor's visits and fun conversations that children really don't have on a normal basis. But I was so fervent and so adamant that cancer did not define me that I simply just ignored the realities for a really long time. And I will say this forever. My parents did make the right choice, right? They basically were like, this does not define you. This does not stop you. You can do anything. And they basically told my doctors every day, she's going to live, back off, right? The mentality of this is not who you are. It is something that you manage has just always been there. But when you become an adult it's time to start navigating the dynamic for yourself. And I have been on a journey since the past almost 15 years now of figuring out what it means to recognize that my health realities shape but don't define who I am. Mm-hmm. And the willingness to engage in that dialogue on my terms has revolutionized my capacity to understand fulfillment for myself. Because when you're spending so much energy pushing against something, you are not giving yourself the space to understand what actually draws you towards something else, right? Because all of your energy is saying, box this thing out, as opposed to let these things in. So my ability to navigate dialogue and understand how my health realities make me strong, and actually give myself credit for the strength that I have to possess to actually live under that, right, has actually allowed me to start accepting that I'm deserving of some level of fulfillment. And that those conversations ultimately have allowed me to understand that fulfillment for me is about the ability, as Risa was talking about, to understand what my authentic self is and bring that to the table without apology or without suggesting that it's my responsibility to diminish that to somebody else. Because the realities that I've learned is that my natural intensity is the thing that allows me to positively impact others. And what a gift that is to be able to impact others.
Yeah, I love that. And what strikes me about all of your experiences is that there really was a catalyst that shifted the trajectory for each of you. Yours came extremely early, but it also was this catalyst of becoming an adult and saying, okay, now that I'm in the driver's seat, what am I going to do with my leadership? For Risa and Helen and I, that moment of change, because I'm also someone who left a 20-year corporate career to pursue a career just doing the things that I felt really called to do and the impact that I felt called to make. And I think for each of us, we had this moment of this catalytic moment that said, okay, what are you going to choose? And to me, that links very closely, Helen, to your first pillar of motivation. And so in the book, you talk about pinpointing core motivation, the thing that energizes you and is not just the thing you think you should want. What got you asking that question for yourself?
That's such a great question. I think what got me asking that question is, even for myself, when you're doing this job and people are like, you're so good at it, or this is where where you shine, and and so there was this obligation that started creeping in for me in HR, because people were then expecting that I would forever solve the same thing. And it was so draining for me that I realized just because you're good at something doesn't mean that that's the thing that is your strength that you choose to use. Talk about going back to your authentic self. So I really had to recalibrate and think about what is the piece that I actually want to do that energizes me in a way that is healthy and sustainable. And so that had me kind of step away and decide to start my own practice so that I could have the flexibility that I wanted, that I could be in conversations with individuals that I felt were interesting and important for what I wanted to do. So that was a real shift for me as I saw that happening around me.
It's such a great example, too, of what you talk about as being values-led. And so, right, that healthy and sustainability, right? Like that is values in action.
It was an absolute core value of mine was flexibility, freedom, being able to be a choice.
One of the questions I've asked now at this point, hundreds and hundreds of women, is how their values have shifted with time. And I do believe, like many people, that our core values stay the same throughout our lives, and yet they do shift in terms of intensity and focus. And that desire for flexibility is one that peaks actually, I believe, later in life than we would most of us expect it to, because we talk about the rebellious teen, but nobody's talking about the rebellious 50-year-old. here we are. Like it's full self-expression. It's not, nor is it with teens, I don't believe most of the time, rage against the machine as much as it is like, I just want to be me. Risa, your catalytic moment was quite different. If we go back to that context, you've shared in your work that losing your dad really put you on a path to reevaluate what mattered to you, how you were spending your time. And you've shared that your dad's last text to you was "love is," leaving you in the position to interpret what that meant to him and to you. So how has that motivated you in this next chapter as you've created these community suppers?
Absolutely. So yes, my father was and is still my greatest supporter, just always that champion in my career. And early on when, companies came and went, he just knew that I'd be resilient, and I was. And he was just always just that supporter, never anything but positive. And when he passed, and his last little text and words to me were "love is," it did take me a year of thinking and walking and thinking and noodling. What does that mean? While I had many years of this love, but I'm like, "love is," did he really mean to type that? Like, or is he putting like a little puzzle out there to me? It was kind of like an interesting challenge. And when I got to take a step into this like thinking mode, I thought to myself, you know what, Risa, you have achieved and more in your corporate life, anything than you ever expected. You really have. It was glorious. It was 38 years, and I'll say 34 of it was fantastic. 4 of it,
That's the offboarding period.
Exactly. That's when you're like, okay. So I could reflect back, and someone said to me who didn't even know me that well when I described it, "You've had a beautiful corporate career." And that kind of gave me that great ability to close that door, but keep those skills. But when Dad said "love is," and after thinking for a year, I said, well, he was a butcher. He loved to cook. He loved to tell stories. He loved to get people together. I love to cook and bake and tell stories and get people together. Having Love is community suppers is an opportunity to do that with new people and expand my community. And now, rather than being in corporate world, I like to call this the human world, where I am engaging with new people every single day. And the positive outcome of that makes it very evident that he's with me every day when I'm in the kitchen, when I'm at these events, when I'm doing all the things I do to take next steps and where I want to bring love is. So he is literally with me saying, "You got it. You got it. You figured out what it meant for you and for us, but you also are taking in all that input from other people to make it a collaboration." So when talking about that that supportive community, the community has been so supportive of what I'm doing, but also is very clear and helpful in saying, "Have you thought of this? What about that? How about an ambassador program?" And so that is my supportive community that builds on the vision I had and the motivation from my dad. So your book is right there. It's already on my bedside table, even though it's not out yet. So it's there. And that's what fills me up. That's what fulfills me, is knowing that all those components come together. And not saying that the corporate career didn't have all those pluses again, but now I can bring those skills to what I'm doing now. So again, the combination is not feeling like I had to say goodbye to it. I just said, let's segue it into something that really is in my heart and soul and is so needed by the world.
Yeah, I hear in your answer this image of puzzle pieces coming together and saying, "Hey, Risa, here's the picture. Can you see it?" And it was this journey really towards what's the most authentic version of this story I could tell, which is so rooted in Sue's moment of paradigm shift here. And Sue has shared that she started to realize in adulthood that she had this story and she had this purpose to guide others who were experiencing illness, who were on their sort of path to purpose and full active engagement. And the world was saying, "Hey, Sue, fulfillment is soft and sweet and tender. It is in whispered tones." And Sue, you've kind of said, I'm going to paraphrase for our audience, "F that. That sounds boring. That does not sound true to me. I am intense. I am high achieving. I am ambitious. And I think probably, you know, if we like that assumption could have left you out of the story. But what was it like for you to say, wait, what if I brought the truest version of me into the story? What might be possible then?
So the shift for me was when I stopped focusing on what I wanted to do and started focusing on who I wanted to be. Right? That I ask myself the same 3 questions every morning for the past decade. And these questions are what ground me in not being succumbed to the shoulds. And those are, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? And how do I want to impact? If I can be constantly living through a lens, not of what I can offer in terms of tasks to be ticked off, but what I can offer in terms of how somebody feels about how I show up to them, for them, with them, that nothing else matters. You could tell me to quiet down, you're too much, you're too loud, you're too this. Fine. That's not my problem, because I know when I'm in that high energy space, what I bring to others is much more impactful, as I said before. And Helen, as you and Risa, both of you talked about these skills that you developed in the corporate space, and this idea that, Helen, you were saying at one point, they started to drain, right? Just your natural amazingness, your natural talent became the thing that drained you. For me, my natural talent became the thing that bored me. So I'm a lawyer by trade. I am born and bred to be a lawyer. Like, this is what I was supposed to be doing with my life, right? That's what I should be doing. And yet I find myself now having migrated to this broad, expansive role in my corporate job across everything, still in the legal space, but more, I'm working on actuarial models and investment strategies. What? No, I don't do numbers. Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind? No. The second I stopped focusing on what am I doing and shifted to who I'm being, the opportunity set expanded, right? So the seeking of and the offering of opportunities, I truly believe, expands infinitely when we are showing up authentically. Because when I stopped caring, I say stopped caring. I stopped caring. I stopped caring if people thought that I was aggressive or intensive. Because intensity for me can be aggressive. It can also be passionate. And I know that my value system, right, derives from it being passionate. And that opened up so many opportunities. And all of those tasks that I was able to do so well, which I can do with my eyes closed, and I'm really good at getting shit done. Congratulations to me. You can get shit done. Woohoo. Great skill set. I learned actually, it is. But what my skill set was actually the capacity to assess things over various areas and synthesize and engage with people in dialogue about how things connect to one another. Guess what? That's not just a skill set I can do in M&A. That's how you connect with people. And so for me, the shift from what am I doing to who I'm being really was the impetus for a lot of that expansion and the willingness to step into more.
Love that. But it's such a perfect segue too to the second step in Helen's framework, which is opportunities. And, you know, I talk about this in my book as what is this moment perfect for, right? Like what resources do we have available to us? And we've heard so much from each of you about how like this is not just this moment, but it is the sum total of all of our lived experiences played out in new and vibrant ways. What are you hearing on the opportunities front, Helen, as you hear Susan and Risa's stories for the first time?
So it's funny, as Sue and Risa were talking, I was thinking, the growth mindset in full effect. You know, I feel that it's something that we've heard about, I guess, in this maybe last decade. And like, that's the piece to lean into. My mom didn't have that. It was like, go to work, come home, and like, let's hope for tomorrow. And the opportunity for me is like, let's really lean into that, because it doesn't cost anything. We could all apply it. And I've found when I've been in either, you know, coaching workshops or running retreats, that if you can like share the frameworks and the research behind why it matters, it really does make a difference. And I think through that, and Sue, you were talking about like the you know, being in not the doing, but like kind of being. And one question that I often ask individuals who are kind of like, well, I want to, look after this opportunity, but how do I go about it? And I ask them to think about what is it that they want to experience for themselves, right? Something that I've also asked myself, like, what is it? Like, do I want to be a leader? Do I want to be the CEO of something or not? And I think sometimes for people that helps to also look at it through that lens as an experience rather than like, I need to do X or, finish this task list. And yeah, so I think opportunities, the biggest one I see is definitely through the mindset window.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, how we, like many of us know the idea of growth mindset, right? And we might even say to ourselves, oh, I have a growth mindset, because we're seeing the parts of our lives in which we have a growth mindset. And growth mindset is a tendency. We are more likely to have a growth mindset in all areas. If we have it in one, we can build that muscle. And we also almost always have blind spots in our growth mindsets. And so I think what you're saying is you explicitly apply that here is look at how you're thinking about what's possible for you in terms of your own growth and your opportunities.
Absolutely, because we default to negative patterns, right? Like it's so much easier to like wallow in what we know. Like, well, you have to also like take agency and then take a stance on what you want to expand and bring out into the world. You have to do that. It can't be done for you all the time.
Yeah, I love that so much. Risa, you, as you said, spent 38 years in a corporate career, did all sorts of extraordinary things. What made this opportunity right now possible in a way it might not have been possible 5 years ago?
Yeah, for me, it was the thinking about how to bring together my love of these other passions of cooking and baking and community. And it was, there was a dinner that I have 3 children, and my middle daughter said, I'd like to invite this group of people over. And then my son said, oh, can I bring so-and-so? And then my youngest daughter said, can I bring so-and-so? And my husband said, sure, everybody come along. And it was like almost like stone soup. Everybody comes a little bit, right? And it was on a weeknight when I was working corporately. 17 people were coming over for dinner. So that's a big group on a weeknight.
Yeah. I'm like already worried about your dishes.
I'm very stressed out.
And I thought, okay, I know I can get the food part because I love to cook and bake, and I'll start a little bit on the weekend. It was a Tuesday evening, and I'll do some in the morning, and I'll, wrap up work at a tidy time and get going. But I wondered about the conversation part. I wondered about, will a conversation flow between these folks that don't know each other? Will it be very, flowy? And then I thought to myself, you know what? Food always is that equalizer. So even when a conversation dips or just kind of gets a little quiet, people can always and will talk about the food. What was in this? Where did you find this recipe? How often do you cook? It's like the weather. It's an easy question to talk about, right? It's safe and it's interesting. So when I hosted that meal and we finished it, and everything went beautifully from a food and dessert standpoint, but then from the conversation, again, just sun, moon, and stars, I said to myself, this is what I need to do. And when we were talking about opportunities, I think one of the roads that folks can take is seeing an opportunity and action. And I just did it. I just said, I'm going to find a place and I'm going to do it in July of last year. And I assume, people who say they want to come will come to this supper. They don't know me. I don't know them. And so I just let it rip. I just said I'm going to do it. And I think that's what holds some people back is the act of doing it, because there's fear, right? There's fear. I was nervous. Will people really show up? Will the conversation flow? How will the whole logistics work? I had never done that before. I'd only cooked in my home. So I thought to myself, but you just got to do it. And then you can massage it and make it a little bit different, or you can take some feedback in. So just doing it. It's like the opportunity in doing it. But an opportunity presented itself with this collaborative dinner that I said, that's step 1. Then we'll get to step 2.
I love that. I'm writing in the book right now, this chapter on minimum viable vision. I think so often we get locked in these little rules about what's okay and what's acceptable, and then we lock ourselves out. And Sue actually has a really cool story about this that I think aligns with so many people, in that for so many of us, we think we have to choose. Do I get to keep my corporate career and stay ambitious and climb that corporate ladder and stay on the path I've built? Or do I have to pivot completely and go down the other path of this service oriented vision that I have for my community purpose. And Sue, you have an opportunity here where you've said, look, I work for really nice, supportive people, and I want to do both. And so I'm going to go really big in both of these without compromise. So talk a little about like how you're reconciling that. Did you have that fear or worry that so many of us carry?
Oh, constantly.
You'll get fired if you do Visceral Edge?
So it's the reason the first iteration of Visceral Edge never went anywhere. So several years ago, I stepped into the world of, mindset coaching and empowerment and workshops and all of that in a very anti-Sue way, a very timid way. It was not, although the verbiage was intense, the actions were very hidden and small, very small. And when I went to business school, I did the exact program at Columbia, and there's something called CBS Stories. And my classmates encouraged me to do a CBS story, CBS Matters, about my life.
CBS Stories?
So it's opportunities for the students to share about themselves to our peers.
Okay.
And I was very hesitant to do it, but somebody was like, please do it. Please share. Like, just open your fucking mouth and talk for an hour. I was like, okay, fine. And the reaction to this day, years later, was so undeniably powerful that I sat back and I was like, I have to do something. I've spent my whole life thinking I have potential, but not being willing to believe it because I felt it was selfish or narcissistic, or that's not what you should be focused on, right? I was the intelligent one. I wasn't the kind one, right? That's the mentality. But I shelved it for a little while because I had to get through business school and I had to climb that corporate ladder. But I brought that mentality to my corporate job. And over the last few years, the willingness for my company to just accept me as me because I refused to show anybody else, right, has allowed me the chance when I had another opportunity. I actually was at a dinner, a women's networking event, totally randomly. And one of the women's there was like, I know you do this thing in your day job, but that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing this other thing. And so it's those links over time, right? For me, it wasn't a moment. But over this past nine months to a year, my mentality has been, I am impactful in my job as a person. Yes, I get shit done for the company and I'm really, really good at what they need for the bottom line, but I'm also impactful as a person. And guess what? This other thing that brings me so much joy and lights me the fuck up, I'm really good at that too. And why am I sitting here saying I have to choose? What? You create time. You don't have it. Right? The ability to stop my mind from wasting time and energy on things that don't serve who I want to be and how I want to show up creates so much time that I have the capacity to do both. Number one. Number two, I am a better human being. I am a better human being when I get to do Visceral Edge. I'm also enhanced as a human being in my corporate job. That is not by accident. Like, I didn't just stumble into an environment that was supportive. I helped create that for myself. I would not settle for anything less. And you know what? A lot of people will be like, oh, that's really hard to create. It's about, you're lucky that you had these sort of people. Yes, I am lucky. I am lucky. But also I made certain decisions about who I was surrounding myself with, what pivots I made in my career. I also made it very clear very early on that I wasn't going to conform to other people's dynamic. And if they had a problem with that, it's okay to fire me. It's okay. Because I can't do my best work for you unless you let me be this person. I am so fortunate that they were responsive to that. And I have incredible mentors and guides and leaders who say, you can do both because we know this other thing serves how you show up here. Mm-hmm. If I were to hide it from them, that's wasted energy. It's wasted energy. Mm-hmm. And it depletes my capacity in both spaces. Mm-hmm. So if my drive is grounded in how I can show up and impact, why would I do anything to undermine that in both places, let alone just one of them?
So well and powerfully said. And yet we get the lesson all the time that we should
constantly
compartmentalize and hide and shrink. And I think every one of you is saying, no, I'm going to bring the biggest, most complete version of myself because, yeah, why? We're cheating everyone and everything when we're editing ourselves in that way.
And it will be offensive to some people. Right? Like, I mean, that's the bottom line, right? You have to be comfortable being offensive to some people. Mm-hmm. And that's where confidence in values for me comes in. If I can look at myself at the end of the day and say that my actions were derived from a place of desired positive impact, how somebody took how I showed up, of course I need to understand that and make changes to support the ability to maybe do it in a way that might feel less abrasive to them. But I don't need to overhaul. Mm-hmm. And that's freed up so much energy and time to be able to realize that. I wish I knew it, 30 years ago.
That you're sharing it now so that we can all be a little bolder. Helen, are you listening to this going like, that's what I mean? That
box ticked all the boxes. Yes.
Yeah. You talk about vision and crafting a clear sense of who you're becoming, not just what you're doing, which of course Sue jumped right into. So what has shifted for you in this chapter in terms of how you are being in order to live with the greatest fulfillment in your vision of yourself?
Sure. Well, it's funny because going back to the vision piece, and I will say that, for some people, like, it's not, they don't have it. They don't have it yet. Like, there's a pull, there's a yearning, there's something. I'm like, just follow that curiosity. You don't need to have the full, perfectly built house. You just need to be like, something is like tugging at me. What is that? Let's scratch the surface. So way back a few years ago, when I was living in Switzerland, I did my undergraduate in the US, and I knew I wanted to live in New York. I just knew, but I grew up in the beautiful Geneva, gorgeous, no complaints, 10 out of 10. It's boring. And so I had this vision of moving to New York and being there. And a bit to Sue's point, so when I said it and let it out there, everybody was like, can't do it, too expensive, you're not American. The laundry list was so long that I just felt like I was being crushed. It was just being literally eaten away, crushed, all of it, ground meat, whatever you want. But I persevered. And so for me, knowing that my vision was more about location than actually what I would be doing. I wanted the experience of living in New York City. And so I, went ahead and did that. And through a couple of ways, I did get a coach to help me with the transition. I was obsessive about playing like Frank Sinatra every morning, New York,
Yes.
And on my little Nokia phone, if you remember the little Nokias back in the day, I had a little poor pixelated photo of the Empire State Building. So I had this whole New York vibe going. And it took me about a year, about 14 months to move to New York, which is when I started working for the United Nations. My point is, vision is so different for every individual. Right? Like that experience for me was I want to live in America, live in New York. I didn't care what I was doing. Now I can say that my vision has shifted in the sense that I am here and I'm just over the moon. I'm here with my husband and we're just over the moon. And the vision has shifted, I guess, back to sort of what is the work? How can I be of service through my voice? I want to use my voice as a vessel to support communities that maybe look like me, don't look like me, but I really am now finding that I can hone more of that as opposed to the earlier version, which was just about I want to be in New York, right? This is now how can I also, in addition to that, be of service? Because that's where you get so much joy is how can this be used as a tool for others coming behind me as well. Because you have to lift as you climb, right, as we know. And so that's something that I'm working on. So I feel like that's where my vision has shifted. And yeah, and the more I am seeing that vision open up, the more opportunities are coming. Right? On your podcast, meeting Risa and Sue, I'm like, oh, we have to do something. Like, there's going to be more. It just amplifies. So it's very exciting.
It is very exciting. And I love the way you layer the vision, because I think there's a part of us that kind of like we feel virtuous about the service vision, but we feel like a little bit embarrassed about the like, I just want to live in New York. Like these things that just matter to us, that maybe aren't in service of the grander purpose of the world, but because we just want them. And I'm like, yes, you get to have both. So Risa, you really started here with the minimum viable vision. You were like, what is the thing I already know how to do? I know how to do it well. I don't feel like I'm taking a ton of risk to do it. I'm going to do it. But what's like when you allow yourself to go, okay, there is this quiet, giant vision for the future that's hanging out in the back of my head, that's exciting me every day. What does it look like?
Yeah. And I think one of the things too is that in corporate America, I led and went with their vision as the corporate person, right? And I believed in it in my heart and soul, but it was still not my vision, right?
Nope.
Now it got to be my vision for the first time. And Sue, also when you were saying too about, being yourself, one of my very first mentors who still also travels with me in spirit every day would just say, Risa, keep being Risa. And when you're in the corporate world, you can't always be Risa or Sue or Helen, or you can't always. You have to be a little bit more moldable, right? And you have to be a little bit more flexible. Now I could just keep being Risa with this vision of, I want to have these community suppers. After I started to do it, I could see the response. The world needs more of this. This was exactly what I was looking for, but I didn't know I was looking for it. How simple this is to get people over a shared table and have a meal and look each other in the eye and not have our phones out and be connected. So the feedback I got was so positive. And then the bigger vision, as you were saying, came from hearing other people, which again builds on my vision, but is this kind of collaborative spirit where people said to me, I'd like to host a Love Is dinner in my community, but one, I don't know how. So you'd need to give me like a framework, an agenda. And two, I don't know where the funds are going to come from. So if you went out there and made sure that you were now a nonprofit, which I'm in those steps now, and you had a fund, I could tap into that. And then the Love Is dinner can happen in any community with anybody. And I even had a woman come to my June supper here in town from New Zealand. And she said, a young woman, 24 years old. And she said to me, I want to be the first global Love Is supper ambassador. Oh. And I said, you got it. So the feedback when I hear that helps build on what the core vision is. But again, it has this, it's me. So it's got to pass my test that it fits right and authentic to what I'm doing and what feedback I'm getting. But the bigger piece of having this ambassador program and having it be a movement across the globe, that's coming from so many people saying where it fits and how they want to be involved. And I have a waiting list of people that want to be ambassadors and a waiting list of people that want to volunteer and help. And I'm only 1 year in. So that's pretty remarkable.
Amazing.
Uh-huh. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Really, it feels good. Like, so I know the vision is mine, but it's a shared vision now. And that, that's what I want. That's what I really want.
Such a great example too of encouraging community, that last pillar we're going to talk about. Yep. Sue, what's your 10X vision for what you're doing now?
So
we ask the intensity girl.
Yeah. 10X. How about 1000X?
How about 1000X? I know. Sorry for the limits.
Listen, I think for me, I'm still in the stage of the wholehearted belief of the confidence, right? Confidence comes in layers in my experience, right? And I have confidence in my voice, but do I have confidence that my message can reach others and actually impact them? And so the thing for me over the years has been just the day-to-day conversations that I've had, whether it's with my team at work, whether it's with my friends, whether it's honestly through the CBS Matters experience, and just believing people when they tell me that the words I've shared have made them become curious, right, Helen, to your point earlier. To me, the greatest skill set you can have is curiosity. And for somebody to say, I want to be thinking about these things, right? I want to be grappling with this. My framework is not a 30-day guide to joy and love and calm, right? Like, I just like, it is hard work, and it's iterative, and it's over long periods of time. And my vision that I'm starting to allow myself to accept as to be and to come is bringing this acceptance of intensity and boldness as also a form of kindness and compassion, and that it can show up in these historically soft, described tenets to younger generations also. Because if 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 14-year-old, 25-year-old, 33-year-old me could have understood that my intensity was not antithetical to kindness, I would have hated myself so much less. I would have not lived in so much darkness for that long. I would have believed in my capacity so much earlier. So my grand vision ultimately is to do exactly what I'm doing on what I see right now as an individual scale, and be able to bring that across intergenerational groups, right? Because it's not just about teaching ourselves, right? This generation, we have to make sure that what we're bringing to the world, everybody, there's so much uniqueness, right? So there are those people who want to be calm and who strive, and that where meditation, yoga, breath work, journaling, all of that works for them, right? And that gives them a lot of comfort. None of that worked for me. And there are people like me out there who are looking out into the world and being told that unless those tools align with them, that like what they don't deserve to be able to manage their mindset. No. Everybody deserves to manage their mindset. Mm-hmm. And so my 1000x vision, right, is for, honestly, like I want to find every single person who thrives on intensity, and I want to support their capacity to convert that to impact for themselves and others.
Hell yes. We want that too. The final pillar here is an encouraging community. Of course, that modifier is super important because we are the sum total of the people we spend our times with. Each of you has talked about the role of community, the people who have encouraged you and supported you along the way. As we wrap up, Helen, why was it so important to you to include community in this framework as a core piece of the process?
It just jumped out off the page, when I was interviewing these women for my thesis. That was the underpinning of everything. It's each time. I agree. And community can be, your cat, your dog, your friends, your dentist, your barista, but nothing was possible without the encouraging community. And so it struck me every time they would use that word, like I was encouraged, I was this, I was surrounded. So that was like a no-brainer. And I see it in my work, in my transition, having moved from, Europe to the States and New York in particular, how insanely generous some women's communities have been and continue to be. And I include obviously the Uplifters, just the name of the community. And that's where the game changing happens. That's where permission happens. That's where we get to invest in each other and share our stories and learn from each other and uplift each other. And so that to me is why I chose that. And there is just one anonymous line that I love, which is surround yourself with people who hand you back your dreams with encouragement. That to me is really the underpinning of most of it, of all of it, rather.
I love that so much. And last week I interviewed the extraordinary Karen Salmonson, author of Be Happy, Damn It, and 24 other bestsellers. And she said her line now is, I want to be around people who say, I get you. And I got you. And I've repeated that in my mind over and over because nobody can do more with few words than she can. And I think that's really it. And as uplifters, that really is our alignment and our agreement as a community to say, hey, you're not in this alone. Like, I see you women out there doing big, brave things. Let's do it together. And the question really was like, what would happen if all the women who were wired to say, like, I get off on helping other people, were to help each other? Because not everybody, right, is wired that way, but there are a lot of us. And like, what if we got each other? And so as we close out, I want to ask each of you to share with the Uplifters community how we can lift you up in this journey that you're on. And Helen, I'll start with you.
Oh, in my own journey, in terms of where I'm headed.
In terms of your book, I imagine.
Yeah. I am looking to speak and use my voice in as many spaces as possible. So if this is of interest, Move and all of the work around fulfillment is important. I would love a shout out, a link up. Anything really to do with that, and collaborations. I love collaborations, so I'm excited to collaborate with each of you, and that's where I'll leave it at that.
Okay, yeah, we need a postscript after this conversation to figure out what we're all going to do together. I have a beach house,
great.
I'm like picturing a Love is Beach dinner right now as we speak. It's fully happening in my brain at this moment. And okay, yes, awesome, cool, great. You're all invited. Thanks for listening. We'll see you there. Risa, how can we support you in Love Is?
Yeah, so I would say the easiest way is to go to my website, love-is.com, and come check out what I'm doing, and follow me on Instagram, Love Is Community Suppers, so you can see the community that I have built, be part of this community, but then also give me your thoughts, as I go into year 2 and I want to expand and getting my nonprofit status and going to be going after funds. I am going to lean to people and ask people, this is new for me. I went after the funds when I was on corporate America, and I was very good at that, but this is different. This is very different. So I need to know where to go. Where can I keep that prospect list really tight that aligns with my mission? So I just encourage everybody to give me that thought about I've heard about a foundation that would align very well with you. And the application process is a little bit more straightforward, let's say, for a newer organization. Any way that people can support me to get to that next step, to have that Love Is ambassador program sooner than later, so that the world can have this community and connection and can have more love, the better we all will be.
Hear, hear. And Sue, how can we support you in Visceral Edge?
Well, we're just getting off the ground, so just checking out the visceraledge.com just to see what it's all about. And, I'm really looking for any and all opportunities to help impact, from keynote stages to workshops. I'll be launching a sort of video program in just a few months, so stay tuned and watch the site for that to come. But for me, at the end of the day, I want to talk with people. So if anything that I've mentioned hits with curiosity or just that gut punch, I just would love to engage with those who want to engage in these kinds of dialogues.
I am so in. I call myself a high capacity girl because I like to hold a lot and get bored easily. So I feel you. I am so filled up from the three of you. And for those of you out there listening, please do follow these folks, get connected, lift them up, and let them know what you need. Because that's the point of all this. We are all so freaking well-resourced as midlife women. We know some things. We've seen some things. We've done the things. We know how to get the things done. We know the people who get them done. Let's share all these resources and get it done bigger and better and faster and impact more people, because we've shared what we have in abundance. And if you're a paid subscriber, join us for our next Lift to Be Lifted Zoom. We're meeting every month. And like we just had our first one. It was honestly one of my favorite nights of my life because everyone shared so honestly and openly. And I laugh because the scariest part for everyone is the part where I say, but what do you need? And everybody's like, no, I'm really comfortable helping other people, but I'm not so comfortable saying what I need. And I'm just freaking done with that part of it. And we are going to get so good at saying I need help because like, we're not going to do it all alone. We need those communities that Helen talks about in her work, these encouraging communities who help us get it done and help us have the impact that we were born to have. So Helen, Sue, Risa, thank you for so bravely stepping into your fulfillment and sharing your ways and your journeys with us. I truly believe this is just the beginning of a conversation, and I can't wait to continue it. For those of you listening, we'll see you next week with another story of amazing, inspiring women who are doing big, brave things and hopefully showing you that you can too. I'll see you over at theuplifterspodcast.com. Thanks for watching the Uplifters Podcast. If this inspired you, hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay uplifted. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little lift today. Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime. Dance with idle hindsight, bring the sun to twilight.